Appreciate it.
All right. That was definitely under 2 minutes, Alex. Thank you.
I promise.
All right. Thanks. Next up on the agenda, we have we've got King County Exec Dow Constantine. Dow, if you can.
Thank you, Paul. Can you
Raise
hear
your
me?
hand. Yes, we can.
Great. I'm stuck in traffic, having left Olympia nearly 3 hours ago now. I'm almost to Fife, so
Oh my gosh.
I'll spare you the video.
Okay.
Yeah, some horrific wreck here that hopefully I'm going to get past soon. The Crisis Care Centers levy, as you mentioned earlier, is King County Proposition 1. It's on the April 25th ballot. Right now, we have no walk-in clinic in King County for someone in a mental health or addiction crisis. We've been losing longer-term residential treatment beds very rapidly as nonprofits have been unable to afford to keep them open. And we're losing workers from behavioral health care, the people it takes to treat people, for the same reason that people are leaving other professions, but also because historically it's been low paid and high stress. Proposition 1 addresses these three issues. First, it builds or creates 5 crisis care centers, one dedicated exclusively to youth. The centers would be distributed geographically around the county so that you can walk in, a family member or social worker can bring you for immediate help. Second, it rebuilds the supply of the longer-term residential treatment beds that people need to continue on the road to recovery. And finally, it stabilizes the workforce, increasing compensation, providing apprenticeships and training, and other supports that people need to go into this absolutely critical industry, this critical profession. This impacts our community in many ways. It impacts homelessness. It impacts the huge percentage of people in jails who have behavioral health challenges and the crime that people have been concerned about on the streets. It impacts hospitals, which are overcrowded with people who have come to emergency rooms as a last resort. And every community in our county, rich and poor, from north to south and east to west, has people who are experiencing this upsurge in mental health challenges coming out of COVID, this increase in addiction challenges attendant to fentanyl. This is a sensible and humane response to a long neglected challenge, not just in our community, but in our country. It costs the owner of an $800,000 home, which is a median home price in King County, about $10 a month, and it would raise $1.25 billion over 6 years to finally begin providing the kind of help people in our community need. We are asking the 43rd District to join other Democratic organizations in endorsing. This has been an all hands on deck effort with our labor partners leading the way, our tribal partners, businesses, and many individuals stepping up. And it would be a big help to have the 43rd on board as well. Thank you. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Is there anyone with questions for Exec Constantine about the levy?
Hey, sorry, I'm unable to raise my hand, but I do have a question. How is this bill alleviating, or the other way around, how is this bill contributing to additional beds for crisis care? If it's a walk-in clinic, how are they providing beds?
Yeah. So those walk-in clinics work this way. You come in and there's a 23-hour period of stabilization where the immediate crisis is dealt with. It often doesn't take people too long to back away from crisis. If they're in a safe setting with professional help, then you can move to the other side of that crisis clinic where you can stay for up to 2 weeks and begin to accept treatment and begin to identify the next best place for you to be. When you're discharged not to the streets but often to one of these longer term residential treatment facilities. Of course, these are all voluntary. Again, this is not, we're not talking about uh, uh, involuntary commitment. We're talking about treatment that people are seeking. And then in those longer term treatment facilities, ultimately people move on to either permanent supportive housing or simple subsidized affordable housing or other setting, or in fact back home to families. This crisis part of it, the no wrong door, if you want to put it that way, is a missing element right now. And there are several jurisdictions around the country, local jurisdictions, who've moved forward with this approach. But America is far behind most of the rest of the world. And shamefully, our state is far behind even many other places around the country. And we just feel that even though this should be a state federal effort, we locally have to step up to meet this humanitarian need.
Mark has a question.
Yeah, so I was wondering how this levy kind of intersects with state funding, as I think the state is supposed to be responsible for funding a lot of behavioral health care. In particular, like I think part of the population this serves probably ends up in the Harborview kind of psychiatric ICU, folks like that. And I think a lot of those folks end up basically being subsidized by state funding.
Yeah. So Harborview, of course, is struggling as well with overcrowding, and they're desperate to have a more appropriate setting to which to discharge people. There's one clinic that you can go to right now if you're brought in by the police or discharged from a hospital, and that's run by Downtown Emergency Service Center. It's east of the Chinatown International District, and it operates similar to how I described these clinics operating, but these would be walk-in, and so they would keep people from going to the hospitals in the first place, allow police to bring people there rather than to jail for booking. In Maricopa County, Arizona, last year, police brought 28,000 people to their crisis clinics rather than to jail. So it is a good, humane, and sensible alternative to get to the real challenges facing people rather than trying to use the hammer of the criminal legal system to deal with what is a very significant and increasing human problem challenge for people in our communities. The state is trying to step up to its responsibility, backed away from behavioral health over the course of decades, but Governor Inslee has proposed a significant increase in behavioral health spending. Even at that, however, even if all the funding was devoted to the kinds of clinics we're talking about, it would only build about 7 across the entire state. And we're talking about 5 and possibly more just in our county. And we feel that will still not meet the full need. So we're a long way from getting to where we need to be. We want the rest of the state to step up and catch up. And as it is the case with so many other things, King County is going to have to lead the way and try to set the standard rather than waiting for the state to provide.
All right, thank you. Is there any other questions about the levy? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your third. I appreciate it.
So we're going to take a vote on a resolution to endorse a vote yes on the crisis care levy ballot measure. Before we do that, first, if everyone can log in with their credentials. Sophia has just a few moments ago sent a link to where you can log in with your voting code so we can get you credentialed for the meeting. You can find that in the chat. If you're unable to find that in the chat, just raise your hand and we'll help you there. You should have your voting code in your inbox right now.
Do we need to hear an opposition to this proposal?
Yes, we're going to take this up in just a minute, Anne Marie. Will Justin Mark need voting codes?
This is Rob Dolan. Will, I'm sending you your voting code via the Zoom chat.
Thanks. Okay, let me. Pull up
Alex
the
is also
link
not
to the
seeing
levy
voting
again.
code. Raising my hand, Paul. Alex is also not receiving a voting code. Rob?
Alex, you're in the 37th, I believe, and with that, you won't have a voting code. People, just for clarification, people are voting members in the 43rd, which is PCOs and paid members, should have received a voting code in the mail. Yeah, Mark, we'll have to look into yours because I am aware that you did.
Mark, I will issue you a manual voting code in a second, and we will verify that separately. 1 second, please.
All right, here's the resolution again. If you can take a look at that, we will wow, a lot of people haven't gotten their voting codes. Sorry, everybody.
Shall we
We've
just
had
move
some-
on without without voting right now? And I'll try to make sure everybody gets their voting codes.
Yes.
And then we will circle back to it in like 15 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that all.
No, thank you very much, Sophia. Just for everyone, we've been having some issues with our back-end tech today on getting the voting codes up into the system and out to everybody. So up above in chat, I think we'll motion that we take up this resolution. So thank you for that, Will. And with that, we'll hear people for and against. We heard the presentation from Dow about what the levy does. And so is there anyone who would like to speak for this, for endorsing this, and anyone who'd like to speak against endorsing? Linda, I see you've got your hand up.
For a point of order, don't we need a second?
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Linda. Do we have anyone who'd like to speak for or against this? Is there anyone who'd like to speak? John, you'd like to speak for or against?
I'm for, and I'd like to tell you what my reservations are.
Okay.
Reservations.
Sorry, 1 second. Let me just see. Is there anyone who'd like to speak against?
Yeah.
Elaine?
Elaine, you'd like to speak against? Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, hold on. John, if you can speak for 2 minutes.
This is important. Certainly, if you go to Europe, the social democracies over there have far more for these people that want to get off of drugs and have mental problems, and that's something that we should emulate. However, I would like to say that a lot of these mental problems are wildly exacerbated by taking hard dope. And there's just not enough muscle being put about into stopping people from selling it, you know. And I have various ideas about how to take a harder hand with them. That's my reservation. Otherwise, I would support it. I will support it.
Right. Thank you. Elaine?
I'm opposing on the basis of it being, part of a long line of very important social measures and improvements, all falling back on our humble tax and property tax system. We're just not making significant, as long as these keep passing, as long as people agree to them on the basis of their merits, which it has, but without commensurate pressure around taxing, is applying this kind of thing to income taxes, we're not making progress.
Right. Thank you, Elaine. Is there anyone, do we have two other people who'd like to speak for and against? There are additional people who'd like to speak for or against? Okay. Not seeing anyone else who would like to speak for or against. Sophia, are we able to hold a vote on this? Or do we need a hold still?
I am still manually issuing voting
Okay.
codes right now. And don't have time to fully verify everyone's voting. Everyone is good. So I am just issuing first, and then we could go back and verify as needed.
Okay.
So Sophia, I took care of Will and Pamela Crone. This is Rob.
Okay, thank you.
And then Sophia, in the Tally Slack channel, I've got the list of the 5 that I think we need to reissue. Pamela, I'll follow up with you on direct message because I think Sophia may have issued you a new one. Andrew, I've got Andrew Ashiofu. I've got you as one of the 5 people who needs a voting code. Just for completeness, I'll call out the list of the people who I am aware of need voting codes. They are Justin Peterson, Mark Foltz, Elaine Nonaman, Anne-Marie Lowe, and Andrew Ashiofu.
I was just informed that my membership is not active, but I know I have renewed it certainly within the last year. So I'm going to have to check that on my other computer.
Yep. Elaine, it's a good point you mentioned about membership. It's worth mentioning that the 43rd LD Dems start their membership year in January of the calendar year. So if you renewed your membership, for example, in September or in June of last year, if you were voting for endorsements, then your membership would have run through the calendar year.
Oh, not sure that I've done that. Then I'll have to check. Can I do that quickly, or?
Yeah, if you do it immediately, you have immediate voting privileges as a voting member from last year.
Okay. Oops.
All right, Sophia, would you be able to throw a link into chat with the? Sorry, let me. With people speaking against. I don't think we'll be able to do a vote by acclamation here. Yeah, yes.
Andrew would like to speak. Andrew Ashiofu on the issue.
Okay. Yeah, Andrew.
Yes, I want to speak for the crisis levy. This is something that we need. You know, we have a lot of people during crisis, they end up going to the prison or to the jail. That's not the solution. The solution is to go somewhere where they could be treated humane, where they could be treated with care, where they could be treated with empathy. And it's high time we start bringing the issues in a way that they are humanized and not just an issue as an inanimate object. And I think we should support this bill, this levy, and the impact is going to be very positive. And I would really want to encourage everyone to vote yes for support. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Sophia, do we have a link to the voting form for this?
Oh, boy.
Give me a second. I might have.
Mark would like to speak, please.
Oh.
Sorry, Mark, yes?
Are you still taking any arguments for or against?
No.
Okay.
Ballot link. All right. Sorry, just give me a second here. I believe that I've got the ballot link. Apologies, people. Hello. Sophia or Rob, is the ballot ready to go?
Mr. Chair, we had 3 additional requests for voting codes. Sophia and I are working on servicing those now.
Okay, all right. It looks like all right. I figured out how to get the form to work. All right, here we go, everyone. Oh, sorry, Linda, before we vote, did you have something you want to say, Linda?
Well, we've had 2 speeches for and 1 against. And I don't know which way the person who asked to speak wants to speak, but if it was a speech against, it would be in order.
Mark, was yours against?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Sorry, thank you. Go ahead then.
Yeah, my concerns, I understand this will probably help a lot of people, but to me, behavioral health includes comprehensive drug treatment and safe consumption. And in the materials presented for this levy, those are conspicuously absent from any of the funding. So my concern is that if we decide to add those resources in the future, having this levy on the books will effectively make it impossible to fund those kinds of services until the levy expires. So I would prefer a comprehensive behavioral care levy, which this is not.
Okay. All right, thank you. Here is the form for this. you will need your voting code. We will hold this open until everyone who needs to get a voting code can get a voting code.
Thank you all for your patience on the voting codes. We're, we have a long-serving team member and a new team member working together via Slack and email to make sure that we fix your problem. And thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving us the bandwidth to make sure that we have the time to make sure that all votes are counted.
Okay, is there anyone who is not able to access that that voting form? Okay. With that, so please take your time to vote in there. We will move on to the next item in our agenda in order to try to stay somewhat on schedule here. The next up on our agenda, while we continue to vote, I will give you ample warning before we close out voting on the crisis care levy and ballot endorsement. Next up on our agenda, we've got the Covenant Home Ownership Account. This is a resolution in support of the proposed Covenant Home Ownership Account bill that is currently in the legislature. And for that, we've got Sean Scott here to speak to what the nature of this bill is and to answer your questions about the bill.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Paul and all the good members of the 43rd, it's great to be here with everybody. I am Sean Scott, member of the 43rd LD Dems. I'm also a lobbyist for the Statewide Poverty Action Network. I worked for many years as a researcher with the Seattle Civil Rights and Labor History Project at the University of Washington that was responsible for uncovering and tracking many of the what are known as racially restrictive covenants in the Seattle area. And this is really kind of at the heart of what HB 1474 is attempting to not only address, but also remedy. The fact that segregation in Washington state was really a government enforced policy through the 20th century. There was a 1960 state Supreme Court decision that upheld the right of segregation, as well as a 1961 state Supreme Court decision in Washington that permitted real estate companies to practice segregation on the basis of race. In 2021, the Washington State Legislature actually passed House Bill 1335 to track and document racially restrictive housing deeds across the state. These are housing deeds that explicitly forbade home ownership on the part of African Americans, folks of Asian descent, Asian Americans, Jewish folks were discriminated against and disallowed from owning homes in many of these deeds as well. House Bill 1335 found 40,000 of these kinds of statutes on the books in Washington state. Many of them remain to this day. 94 racially restrictive housing covenants were found in Pierce County alone in the 28th LD. In the 16th legislative district, there was a couple in Walla Walla, Washington that actually purchased a home in 2018 that still excluded or still contained language in the deed barring a home ownership by any race other than white or Caucasian. That was a direct quote. In a 2020 report about the 21st LD, the Northwest Fair Housing Alliance identified racially restrictive covenants as a present-day impediment to the full implementation of the Federal Fair Housing Act in Everett and in Mukilteo. In our own 43rd LD, shamefully, you can actually find quite a few housing covenants, racially restrictive housing covenants that barred minorities, barred many white folks, actually many poor white folks from being able to own homes in areas such as Capitol Hill, which was at one point in time completely blanketed by racial restrictive housing covenants. Madison Park, Washington Park, Wallingford, all of these areas had at one point or another racially restrictive housing deeds. So what House Bill 1474 is really about is about the fact that structural racism is more than a faded tragedy that we read about in history books and recount every Martin Luther King Day. It is a pervasive force that continues to impact the life outcomes of Washingtonians. There are areas in the Tacoma area, for example, where there is as much of a 20-year life expectancy difference between folks that reside in certain parts of the district versus others. All of that almost exclusively explicable in terms of areas that were segregated and those that were not. So as a result of the state playing an active role in creating segregation in Washington state, which I think all of us in the 43rd LD, on this call tonight would admit was a mistake. This is a golden opportunity to correct that, to remedy it. House Bill 1474, which has a ton of support in the House and also in the Senate, assesses a $100 fee on all racially restrictive housing covenants that are found in Washington and on real estate transactions in the state, and redirects those into a housing stability account for Black Washingtonians, Brown Washingtonians, Washingtonians that were historically found to have been discriminated against in Washington state's enforcement of segregation. I think that this is a bill that really gives us an opportunity to right historical wrongs and directing the funds resulting therefrom into a housing stability fund that I think is only going to make not only our RLD, but also our state a lot stronger. So would urge a lot of folks to pitch in their support for 1474, and we'll take any questions if there are any out there.
So anyone with questions about the bill? Anyone with questions about the bill? Please raise your hand if you do. Okay, not seeing any questions. So anyone would like to motion to bring forward this resolution for us to vote on?
I would like to motion.
Thanks, Don. All right, thanks. Do we have a second?
I second.
All right, thank you. I have put the link to the bill. Let me just grab it again. Link to the bill and to the resolution in chat. Let me put that in here again. And okay, with that, I will ask, is there anyone who'd like to speak for the resolution or against the resolution? If so, please raise your hand. Pamela, thanks.
Yes.
Would you like to speak for or against?
I would like to speak for.
All right, thanks. Do we have anyone who'd like to speak against? Anyone like to speak against? Okay. Oh, Anne Marie, would you like to speak for or against?
I guess it's neither. It's a question, which is,
okay.
Is this the way forward, is by putting a bill forward, or is there any other administrative path that doesn't require a vote and all of the apparatus that requires?
Do you mean at the state level? Or do you mean here in the 43rd?
Well, I believe that someone is putting forward a bill about home ownership, right? And the question is that the right path for such a thing? Or is there another administrative tool that doesn't require a vote by anybody, that we could just move through with executive resolutions or something else within the state? Does anybody know the answer to that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Anne Marie. I think it gets to the heart of the issue about the role that the state and our elected officials in legislative districts that are at the very least historically segregated should play in addressing that misdeed. I think that if you were, I can't speak for Governor Inslee, but I do know that I would anticipate that if there were, the power resided with him to actually just kind of pass an executive order or whatever the case might be to address this directly, you would have to think that as somebody who's enjoyed as much support as he has over the years from a lot of communities of color across the state, that maybe he would do so, maybe he would not, I don't know, but we send our electeds to Olympia, with the confidence that they have the ability to address the things that would be the best for the residents of the state. I think that there will be healthy debate around how to implement the covenant fee. I think there will be good debate about how to administer the funds that result from it. How much of that should go to a housing stability fund? How much of that should go to rental assistance? My understanding up to this point is actually the majority of it would be a housing stability fund to help with the number one sort of barrier that exists for home ownership among communities of color, which is making an adequate down payment. So that I think this really gives us a great opportunity to see where our elected officials stand on not just an important and critical historical issue, but one that I think lives on into the present. So I actually think that there are some real positives that come from being able to see our elected officials have a robust debate about this and understanding where they'll stand on the issue, and making it an act of legislation as opposed to something that's sort of implemented executively also gives us the opportunity to strengthen and modify it as the years go on. So I think that's where this would probably be I think the most opportune and the ideal pathway forward for implementing a covenant restrictions fee.
And Anne-Marie, just to make sure it's very clear, this legislation raises money to provide things like down payment assistance and other things like that. And so because it has budgetary impact, it would require legislation.
Yeah, I'm getting that. I guess the intent I would assume is to correct all of those covenants, and separate, but a benefit might be a budget going towards impacted groups. I was just thinking of a more straightforward, simpler, easier, straightforward path of getting all of those deeds, et cetera, getting all of that administratively cared for without having to deal with the massive overhead of political apparatus. So you've answered the question. Thanks, Sean.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to point out, and it's a really good question. I assume that there are probably others that have similar kinds of questions as well. These are, the racially restrictive housing covenants. The earliest of these were really uncovered in or around 2004, which was when the scholarly attempt was made at the University of Washington to really delve into the full extent of segregation in the Seattle area at first. And many of the real estate companies, when it was sort of brought to light, many of the people that were in charge of some of those firms might not have even been around when they were first implemented in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. And unfortunately, a lot of those firms actually did not make the decision to repeal them when they had the opportunity. That probably would have saved them a lot of money and a lot of negative scrutiny if they had simply done right by history as it was presented them over the last few decades. So it's unfortunate actually that it has to come to a legislative solution, because we have some bad actors in the private real estate world that actually didn't see fit to remove these from the books when they were first sort of presented to them. So that's an important component of the discussion as well.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to the resolution. Pamela, you said you'd like to speak in favor of this resolution?
Yes, Sean has done an excellent job. I don't have much to add, just that there has been very little done in the legislature this session that really tries to increase equity or has an element of equity in the legislation. There were a couple of bills that would have created some rent stability, and they have not moved. So this bill is just critically important to just taking some steps to rectify an historic wrong. And I think it's one of the first times that I've heard the legislature even discuss these issues. So anyway, strongly support this measure, and it would be great if we would have a unanimous vote.
All right, thank you, Pamela. And with that, is there anyone, just before we move on, just to make sure, is there anyone like to speak against this resolution? All right, not seeing that, Amy has moved to pass by acclamation, and I see in chat that there is a second. So with that, is there any objections to passing by acclamation? If so, please raise your hand and we will go to a vote. Is there any objection to passing this resolution supporting HB 1474 and asking the state legislature to pass this legislation this session? Any objection? Okay, seeing no objection, we will adopt this resolution by acclamation. Thank you all. All right. Moving on to the next, let me put I'll put the agenda link.
Before we go
yes,
on,
Sophia.
Paul,
Yes.
I think at this point, everyone who requested a voting code should have gotten one. If that is not the case, please message me, and also everyone, please use that to sign in to the credential form, and we should be ready to go with whatever other voting that needs to be done then.
All right, thank you, Sophia. Would you mind putting the credentialing link in chat again?
Yes, one sec.
All right. Thank you very much, Sophia. And thank you, Sean, for your presentation on the Covenant Home ownership account. Okay. Next up on our agenda is ranked choice voting for presidential primaries. We have a resolution. Is there anyone who would like to motion that we consider this resolution?
This is Andrew. I would like to make a motion. We adopt the ranked choice voting for presidential election resolution.
All right, thank you. And I see in chat a second. Thank you very much. Andrew, would you like to provide the context around this before we have statements for and against the resolution itself?
Yes.
Thank you.
In 2020, 1 in 4 voters mailed their ballots for a candidate after the during the primary election, and after normally we lose like 25% of votes because candidates could either drop or things happen. And so in 5 states currently, Alaska, Hawaii, Wyoming, Kansas, Maine, this is being used to ensure that everyone's voice is being heard. Ranked choice voting would give every voter the chance to vote their hearts while still ranking backup choices in case their favorite drops out. A proven upgrade, ranked choice voting is already used, as I said, in nearly 60 places, just minus presidential primaries, in nearly 60 places across the USA. We just passed ranked choice voting here in Seattle in the last general elections in November. And so I would like to present this and say this is something we should support to ensure every voice is being heard for the presidential election.
Thanks. And specifically can you speak specifically to what this resolution is asking us to do?
So it's to ensure that, one, the Washington State's Central Committee lobbies the support for using ranked choice voting for delegate selection through affirmative action plan in the presidential primary, and that we call on our states representatives to ensure that bills such as HB 1592 that wasn't passed this year, but it comes up again in the next legislative session, that they support it.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions anyone has about the resolution before we have statements for and against? Let's see. I see there is a hand up. Linda, yes.
So I don't understand the clause about the delegate selection. How are delegates selected now? And how does this change that? Now we're just talking about the delegates who will actually do the voting at the National Convention, right? This is where I'm confused. How do the two systems align?
Andrew, are you able to answer that?
So I'll give you just like an example, like what they do in the other states where they use this for the Democratic presidential primaries and selection. The threshold to receive delegates is at least 15%. So they keep on going, you know, using the ranked choice voting until they have that 15% threshold across.
So you're not referring to selecting the people who will cast those votes. You're talking about whose delegates will be going.
Yes.
Now it makes sense to me. Thank you.
And one other clarification on this, Linda. What this is asking is that the state central committee take into consideration ranked choice voting as it sets out its delegate process for the next presidential primary. It doesn't specify any particular format for it. Will, I think your hand was up next. You have a question?
Yes. Sorry. So this is for the Democratic candidate for the primary, correct? For the presidential primary?
Yes.
So it is restricted to only Democrats who have acknowledged that they are Democrats and is not available to third party or other individuals.
So the bill is generic. The way we vote in our primaries, we are not registered either Democrat or Republican or third party, but we're also asking the state central committee to have this as part of the delegates selection process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, was there another hand up that I missed? Thought there was a second hand up. I might have lowered the wrong hand. Was there another question? Mark, thank you. Sorry, I accidentally lowered your hand instead of Will's. Mark? Mark, do you have a question? Mark Taylor Canfield? If you're speaking, we're unable to hear you. All right. Okay. Mark, are you still not able to hear you? Are you able to maybe just type your question into chat? Anne-Marie?
Yeah, can I, are you hearing the for and against? I'm kind of lost in where we are in process right now.
We're still questions about the resolution.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Mark states, who currently use ranked choice voting, how many were voted on by state legislatures versus People's Initiative? Do you happen to know that, Andrew? I am not sure off the top of my head on that myself.
Yeah, I know like Alaska, Maine, where mostly most of them has been initiative. Alaska was, I mean, Maine was a very interesting one whereby the bill was passed in the House, but the governor did not sign the bill, so they could not use it in the last presidential election, but it's going to be used in this coming primary election.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move to voting now. Is there anyone who'd like to speak for the resolution or against the resolution? If so, please raise your hand. All right, we have Anne Marie. Anne Marie, would you like to speak for or against?
Against, unfortunately. I
Okay.
personally am.
Wait, hold on, hold on.
Sorry.
Is there anyone who would like to is there anyone who would like to speak against? I'm sorry, speak for. Linda, you would like to speak for?
John would.
John would. Okay. All right. We will have before I do that, yeah, we'll do this. Okay, John, if you can speak for, and then Anne Marie, you can speak against.
Well, I think this addresses the highly polarized political situation we have in this country, where either you're in the Democrats or you're in the Republicans. And I think that it creates more nuance. People can vote for who they want to, even if it doesn't fit into a party classification.
Done.
All right, thank you, John. Anne Marie, you like to speak against?
Yes, and I agree with what John just said 100%. My discomfort here and why I'm speaking against is that we have a crisis of confidence in our voting system right now across the nation. Whether that crisis of confidence is manufactured or real, it is out there. And I am concerned that any changes to our current voting systems will only further erode people's confidence in our system and in our democracy. I did not support this for our state, for our county, for our state. And until we have decent and earnest conversations about voting and where the shortcomings are and how to fix them, I don't believe we should be introducing any changes. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Anne Marie. We can take one more for and one more against. Do we have anyone like to speak for or against this measure? Let's see, Linda, would you like to speak for or against? Sorry, you're on mute.
I'll speak for unless someone else.
Speak for,
wants to.
okay. Elaine, would you like to speak for or against? Sorry, you're on mute.
Also for.
Okay. Between the two of you, who would like to? Oh, Linda, looks like you put your hand down. Thank you. All right, Elaine, it's for you.
I think this approach to voting gives us the best possible outcome, and the fact that it passed substantially in the state at the municipal level means it of course this is a liberal part of the state and it might not get the same response elsewhere, but it has to appeal to everyone to be able to influence the outcome of the election when your primary candidate won't win, and there are really reprehensible people who are, getting funded and unwanted attention, that this is the only other way you have to move them out of contention. If you think what might have happened in 2016 if this were in place, particularly, there was, people in the primary would have, most of them were onerous, but not nearly as onerous as what we got. So it may have made a difference in a case like that.
All right, thank you, Elaine. Okay, with that, we'll go to a vote. Sophia and Rob, can one of you put the link to the voting ballot for this resolution into the link? Sorry, into chat. Sophia, Rob?
Here, I am posting it right now.
All right, thank you very much. All right, take a few minutes there. I believe with everyone having their voting code, we will also, in just a few minutes, close the voting on the crisis care levy. If you haven't voted in the crisis care levy, please do that right away. And we will leave the ranked choice voting open while we move on to the next item in our agenda, which is our proposed 2023 budget. And with that, I will hand it over to Brad Bell, our treasurer, to talk us through this.
Hello. Let's see. So we have a proposed budget that we talked over, and Paul just posted the link to it there. It's substantially the same as it was last year. The only changes are to give us a little bit more flexibility with fundraising and elections, since this is a big year for local elections. And I don't know if do you want to share it, Paul?
Yeah, give me a second here. Let me resize my window and everything so it's actually legible when I present it. Here we go. All right.
So the only changes that we made are in the expenditures, and basically a couple of increases, because we do think that it's not likely that any of those will be fully met in terms of what we actually spend, but we do think there is potential for us to make good use of that money. Yeah, just
the fluorescent green are the line items that we increased, Brad?
That's correct.
Okay. So an increase in get out the vote work, an increase in essentially software, infrastructure, stuff like that. increased spend on fundraising, and slight increase on the real rent we're paying to the Duwamish tribe. Is there any questions that anyone has about the budget?
Not about the budget, but Elaine has an issue with her voting code for the ranked choice voting. Mark has a question about the budget.
Yes, Mark.
Are the 43rd monthly meetings or committee meetings going to be in person in 2023? And if not, why are we budgeting for meeting space?
Yeah, we think potentially, we know a lot of people would like us to be able to have more in-person meetings and probably hybrid meetings. So that's why we've kept that on there. And we actually, hopefully, we would want to move to sort of consolidate some of these budgets to make it a little more clear that, you know, whether it's virtual or in person, you know, a meeting expense is a meeting expense.
Dawn?
I would also like to add that we need a healthy budget and a healthy foundation for events and meetings, for not just fundraising or for virtual meetings for the 43rd, but for events like the District 3 and District 4 City Council forums that we are providing for the general public, and other get out the vote educational support that we are providing the 43rd Legislative District, in addition to the body meetings. Thank you.
And Mark, one thing we'd like to do is, and the board has got a number of things going on. Dawn has been working really hard on finding some spaces for us to do some upcoming meeting events. But one thing we'd like to do is start having not meetings, but get-togethers where we can get together in person and see other people from the 43rd, in addition to this monthly membership meeting. And so that's a potential expense that we may have for the budget. Mark?
Second question. It looks like we're budgeting expenditures of $33,400 in 2023, but only raising $17,000. So that is a big difference in cash flow. Are we need to fundraise more, or are we going to use our savings to fund this?
That's not meant to be an actual cash flow. That's just these are limits basically on budgets.
I see.
It's just to make sure we don't spend more than what the membership thinks is reasonable for a given set of items, you know.
Oh, so this is a cap. It is not a target.
Yes.
Anne-Marie, would you like to speak to what you put into chat?
I think somebody just mentioned it, is we've got $3,000 somehow allocated for meetings. And I believe somebody else said that we would like to use perhaps that money for get out the vote exercises and or candidate forums. And I think if we were to more accurately allocate those monies, we would move it into 6020 and out of 5010. I don't know how much it makes a difference moving things around on a spreadsheet, but I think what I heard is that we're going to be using the money for candidate forums, et cetera, and get out the vote exercises and not for quote events and meetings for the general assembly.
Yeah, those would stay in 6020. You're right.
Any other questions about the budget?
Don, I saw you come off mute. Did you have something to add? Okay.
All right. So someone would like to motion that we adopt the budget. Unfortunately, not seeing. There we go. Is there anyone who'd like to motion that we adopt the budget? Emily?
I move that we adopt the budget.
Thanks. Is there a second?
I second.
Second. All right. Several seconds. I will. I'm just. So I'm moving second from Will as well. Sorry if I didn't see that earlier. Amy has moved that we take this vote by acclamation. Is there any objections to adopting this budget by acclamation? Is there anyone who is who would object to us adopting this by acclamation? I'll ask one more time. GH. Sounds like it isn't balanced, so you would object to it. All right. Okay. Sophia, can you provide us with a voting form for the budget?
Yeah, give me a moment. Give me a moment. I have to put it together. Didn't include it in my list. Sorry.
All right, we'll take that vote in just a minute. While Sophia's working on that, Dawn and Nasheen, would you like to talk about ballots and bubbly?
Thank you, Paul. Nosheen is unavailable to speak tonight because of Nowruz. She is observing Nowruz, and I'd like to hold space on that. We are still in the plannings for ballots and bubbly, the wonderful event that the 43rd has held successfully in the past. We have narrowed it down to a couple of locations, and it will be held in May. We're looking at May 16th, and we are really excited to see you all there. And we would ask that you come and volunteer with us as soon as you can. We will put a volunteer sign-up sheet in the chats as soon as possible as well. And looking forward to seeing all of you here in that special event here that's present, as well as interacting with many of the politicians there. And that's all I have to add on that presently. Thank you.
About when do we expect to have it?
May 16th is the preferred date on the usual 43rd body meeting time, so that it will not interfere within our schedule. And would you like to know which areas we are streamlining and considering for the meeting, or not? Okay.
So
another option is May 20th. We have that flexibility.
Okay. So Balanced and Bubbly, May 16th or May 20th. We're still trying to nail down the date based upon event space availability, correct, Dawn?
Correct.
And it will be a fundraising event. We'll get candidates in, where you can meet candidates, get to know them, and support the 43rd and support our Get the Vote efforts.
Yes, and you'll get a chance to ask them a few questions and just have a good time interacting with each other. And I personally look forward to meeting all y'all in person with some good drinks.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, Sophia has posted links into chat. There's the credentials link, there's the crisis care ballot link, there's the ranked choice voting link, and there is the budget approval link. Please take your time right now to do those votes. I am going to do mine right now as well, so I'll just leave everybody the space to do this as well before we move on.
And at this point, everybody should have voting codes. I did post 3 invalid voting codes people have used to sign in. So if you have used those, please double check, and please double check your voting codes. And I think there may be some people who haven't signed into the credentials who are voting. So those votes will not be valid until you have signed in. If you sign in, you do not have to vote again. Your vote will automatically be marked as good once you did sign in, but please do so. I will do my best to poke at people as I see as votes come in, if I see any that are invalid, to make sure that we get everyone's votes in as accurately as possible.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Sophia. Okay, next up on the agenda is volunteer. Rob, would you like to talk about that as you pull together that sign-up form?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a volunteer form now that was in a number of our emails. And while I'm speaking, if I could ask someone to paste the short link into the chat, but
it's in.
Perfect. Thank you. This was created in collaboration by all the members of our executive board. There's some basic information on kind of the first set of questions for your contact info. There's an opportunity to opt in for different types of volunteering, like you might enjoy doorbelling or text banking or organizing events. There's an opportunity to opt in for different committees, like if you want to be on our events committee or our elections committee or our PCO recruitment committee or our tech committee, highly recommended. And then there's also an opportunity to indicate your interest in a number of constituency and affinity caucuses that are either organized at the 43rd District Democrats level, like the Environmental Caucus, or organized statewide, like the Jewish Caucus or the Stonewall or LGBTQ caucus. I hope that everybody would take a quick minute and you can opt into whatever you're interested in. You don't need to opt into necessarily anything, but this will help us to make sure that you get information about the types of events that you're interested in, or slot you into the committee or committees that you're interested in, and not necessarily, and help us to make sure that we get you the information you want and don't bug you with information that you might not be interested in. Paul, Sophia, Amy, or others, anyone want to add on to that?
No, I think it's a great summary. Please do, if you're interested in getting more involved, bunch of committees, bunch of work, or even if you just want to do doorbelling, as Rob was saying, doorbelling, or help pass out literature, whatever it might be, please use this form so that we can get in touch with you and put you to work here in the 43rd to make sure that we get some really good progressive candidates and progressive issues passed for the 43rd.
Yeah, and this will also help us to understand what our capacity is to potentially support some of the other LDs around the county or other progressive races. So if we have a lot of people who like to doorbell or a lot of people who like to text bank, that could help us to make sure that we can keep the King County Council blue, or elect progressive school board members that may represent our district or may represent adjacent districts. So it helps not only our immediate relatively deep blue part of the 43rd, but this is also about understanding what our capacity is and what our interests are for working on some of those purple areas in East King County or South King County.
And I'll just jump in and kind of echo what you were saying, Rob and Paul, right? Which is that they're depending on kind of your skill set and your particular passion for in terms of what you want to be doing. I think there's a lot of different types of opportunities. And I think that's really cool. So it doesn't just have to be one type of thing. And similar to what Rob was saying is just that we can be relatively reliably blue sometimes, right? Here in the 43rd, not to say that we don't still have voter turnout to do, but so sometimes when we're kind of overflowing with that volunteer capacity, that doesn't just mean that it goes nowhere. It means that we can then kind of get to look around to some of our neighbor LDs and go, okay, is there any way that we can sort of help and be a force multiplier in some of these races that are really gonna wind up on the margins here?
All right. Thanks for that addition, Cody. All right. With that, we took several votes. Sophia, are you ready with the results?
Yeah, let me close.
Or Mr. Chair, we have, I believe, one outstanding voting code. So if any of our votes are within one vote, we may need to go capture that vote. We have two people at the same household, and I can't find the second voting code for one of the household members.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So we may be ready with the votes based on if things are overwhelming one way or another, but if things are within a vote, we may need to keep it open for a moment.
All right. Thank you, Rob.
Let me check.
Let's see. So crisis care levy, because this is endorsing a ballot measure, we need a 60% approval threshold to endorse.
Yes, the crisis care levy, we have 17 people approve, 2 people abstaining, and 3 people rejecting. So that does pass overwhelmingly.
All right. And ranked choice voting, the next one.
Let me close that one also then. Let's see, ranked choice voting results. 20 people have voted to approve. One person has rejected and 2 people have abstained. So that also passes.
All right, thank you. Yes, Ellen?
I'm sorry, Sophia, I didn't quite get those numbers. Did you say in the crisis care levy, 54 abstentions?
No.
I thought that can't be right.
Sorry, yes. In the crisis care, that was 17 people approved, 3 people rejected, and 2 people have abstained.
2 people abstained. Okay, thank you. And again, the numbers on ranked choice voting, please.
For ranked choice voting, we have 20 people approve, 1 person reject, and 2 people have abstained.
Thank you so much, Sophia.
All right, and then on the budget.
1 sec. Let me close the budget one really quick. Okay, I have closed the budget and the results are 14 people have voted to approve and 2 people have voted to reject.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So thank you all for those votes. So to summarize that up, crisis care levy endorsed, Covenant Home ownership account resolution passes, ranked choice voting resolution passes, 43rd budget passes. Thank you all for those. And with that, I'm going to hand the gavel over to Emily to take us through all the committee reports.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Mark, do you have a question before we get started?
I think maybe Mark's hand was up from previously. If you do have a question, Mark, just type it in the chat because I think you're having audio issues previously. All right. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll look out for that in the chat. Okay, so going into our committee chair intros and reports. First off is finance with Brad. Do you have anything to add post approving the budget?
I'll just say thank you, and there is always room for improvement in a budget. So if anyone does want to help work on that, we can always use volunteers.
Thanks so much, Brad. I am not seeing Jacob on the call for elections. Paul, do you have an update for elections?
I don't, but endorsement season is coming up. If you'd like to partner with Jacob on the endorsement process and candidate forums and whatnot, please use the sign-up form and let us know your interest in that. We will have starting next month, we'll probably have a slew of candidates coming in to introduce themselves. As you heard earlier, allusions to candidate forums, working getting some candidate forums, probably early June or something like that, so we can get you introduced and some debates going with all the candidates who are running for D3 and D4 in Seattle Council.
Thanks so much, Paul. Cody with PCO, do you have an update for us for this meeting?
Yeah, hi, thank you. Yes, so I think a little behind on PCO applications. Just want to call out that I'm aware of that, and I'll kind of look at. I know I got some folks who've been kind enough to fill out our PCO application form that King County has. So I'll make sure that we kind of have any appointments on the docket ready for next meeting. And also really want to call out that I am starting a new job where I'm a little busier than I initially thought I'd be, kind of re-up in this role. And so what would be super beneficial to me is if anyone on this meeting, or if anyone on this meeting knows somebody who's kind of been waiting in the wings, like, man, I'd really love to kind of get my hands into the PCO side a little bit more, or even just get more involved with the board side. Would love to have somebody that I can kind of help cultivate skills that they're looking to cultivate, and be able to kind of help offset some of the backlog there. And I promise any of that would come with a robust amount of training. You know, as busy as I might be right now, I think that's something that I can definitely commit to, is making sure that whoever is kind of stepping in to help in that way would have all the tools and all the support and resources that they need. So I'm just going to, here in the chat, I'm going to share again. You might be sick of hearing of it, but Rob did a terrific job on it. So I'm gonna bump again that volunteer sign up form that I think can be really beneficial. Feel free to call out there. I think there's a field if you're interested in the PCO side. I think there's a lot of stuff that we can get you plugged into. And as always, even if I'm busy, I'm just a phone call away and can pretty easily kind of help navigate some of the specific processes that we have on that side. So I'll share here the volunteer sign up again, as well as my own 43rd email, and as well as my phone number here. So really hoping that there might be some folks waiting in the wings who want to get more involved on the PCO side, and happy to kind of welcome you and have you plugged in as much or as little as you're interested in being. Doesn't have to be a blood oath out of the gate. Totally game for kind of, you know, whatever is a healthy amount that you're able to contribute. Happy to have that. So thanks, Emily, and thanks for your consideration, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Cody. Appreciate it. Next we have James with membership, and I was not seeing James on the participant tab. I'm going to check again. No. Okay. I think, unless Paul, you have an update about membership.
I'll just note the thing that a number of you experienced tonight. Paying membership, if you're not already a PCO, is important. And if you were a member last year, you can join and have voting membership immediately. So if you haven't, please do sign up and pay membership so that we can help get out the vote for candidates and do other work in the 43rd. Thanks.
Absolutely. And while I have you here, Paul, Nosheen in fundraising is not on the call tonight. And Camille is also not from Policy Advocacy.
Yeah, so with fundraising, the big thing is what Dawn talked about earlier, Ballots and Bubbly. We're working on getting several fundraising events going over the course of the year. The Ballots and Bubbly is the biggest, most important one at this time. And we'll have some additional ones that Nosheen will speak to in coming months. And Policy Advocacy with Camille. The big things is just the state, the legislature is in session right now. Please keep tabs on what's happening there. Please keep in contact with our representatives, and let them know your views on the legislation that is up there. So those are big things there.
Thanks so much, Paul. Appreciate it. Over to you, Dawn, with meetings and events, if you have anything that you'd like to.
I don't really have anything to add, except that I'm working really hard with Nosheen, and Paul and Brad have been really wonderfully advising and guiding for the ballots and bubbly. And I've been reaching out to a couple of venue spots and working with the Young Democrats of the University of Washington, and arranging to meet with some candidates over the D3 and D4 forum, and looking forward to providing in-person, hopefully, events that are accessible to the 43rd, so that we can really get inspired by our environment and interact with each other and with our city council members. And got a couple of spots lined down for that, and more. Stay tuned for the next 43rd meeting to find those events, and stay tuned to all of our social media accounts as well. And please come help us, me and Nosheen. We'd love to have you, and the 43rd would too. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dawn. Over to Rob with technology.
Thanks very much. Just 3 brief updates for technology. One, first and foremost, please do take a minute to complete that volunteer form. 2, this past month, we've built out some Slack channels. So every one of our committees has a public Slack channel on our 43rd District Democrats Slack. Again, use that volunteer form to indicate what you're interested in, and we'll make sure to get you added to those. That was an intentional transition from some that were private to making as much as we could public, so that if you want to follow along with what's going on with the State Central Committee, the King County Central Committee, the fundraising committee, we've got a Slack channel so you can get some ambient awareness of what's going on there. And then last but not least, in partnership with a number of our returning officers, we're working to organize our Google Drive so that our assets are more easily findable. If anyone has any suggestions or wants to help out on the tech front, please again fill out that volunteer form and check the box for tech. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Rob. And we did get a question right in the chat while you were speaking. If you have a quick answer for it, how would someone get added to the Slack channels that we've made public?
Just use that volunteer form to indicate you're interested in particular committees, and then we'll add the email that you put in that volunteer form, or we will invite the email that you put in that volunteer form to the Slack workspace, and then add you to the relevant Slack channels.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And
absolutely.
One additional thing on there, do become a member as part of getting access to Slack.
Good point, Paul. Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, moving right along, we have an update from our King County reps, Andrew and Sophia.
I could give a update. Most of all, we are working on getting endorsements ready to be set up and ready to go. Also, the major thing that we have done last meeting was approve the crisis care center levy also within King County, and now we've done so in our district, so go all of us for that. Yeah, that's it for now. If anybody is interested in more, please let me know, or Andrew, and we could go into more detail.
Thanks, Sophia. Andrew, did you have anything to add? I saw you came off mute.
No, nothing. Sophia said everything.
Okay. Thank you both so much. And the last report is from our state reps, Amy and Sam.
Hey everyone, this is Amy Madden, and Sam, if you'd like to add anything, please feel free to jump in. Just real quick, the main work going on with the state committee right now is in the rules committee with the delegate selection and affirmative action plan, the DSAP, which helps determine how we run our primaries and allocate our delegates. And I just really want to thank the membership tonight for passing the ranked choice voting resolution, because that's going to help empower me and other state committee members to advocate for inclusion of RCV in our DSAP, whether RCV becomes a thing we can use or not, we at least carve out that space for it. So, and thank you to Andrew for organizing that tonight. So thank you again for that. And I think that's it for me.
Thanks, Amy. Sam, did you have anything that you wanted to add? Just want to make space for you.
No, I'm on the finance committee and we have not met yet. So Amy is way ahead with rules committee. So thank you for all the work that's happening there. All
right. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it. Okay. We are now moving to good of the order. We have 9 minutes. Would love to see raise of hands, and just to make sure that we're getting to everybody, I'll be keeping track of time and limiting, I think, 1.5 minutes per person. So I will start by calling on Justin.
Yeah, thank you. So some things were said earlier in the meeting when we were discussing the Crisis Care Centers levy that I just kind of wanted to call out and speak to. I believe that they were said with good intentions, but it's important to choose our words wisely. I want to ask our membership to use empathy when speaking about people who are struggling with lack of shelter and healthcare issues. They deserve dignity and respect. We have folks in our membership who have or are surviving homelessness or health issues that are being discussed, and it's important to be welcoming to them. It's not appropriate ever to call out for a harder hand to be used against those who are struggling. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justin. I really appreciate those words, and it's a good reminder, absolutely. I also see in the chat that we had been reached out to by John Brooks to speak about a resolution. Is John on the call?
Yes, John Quello.
Yeah, I have a resolution. If you click on the link, you can read it. As you may know, there have been a number of maybe 7 or so different mass demonstrations on the part of the Iranian community in the Puget Sound area, mainly in Seattle and on the other side of the lake. And they are a show of solidarity with the beleaguered people of Iran, who are trying to overthrow a vicious theocracy that has been afflicting them for 40 years. And to show solidarity with them and to get some of their requests satisfied, I'd like you to read the resolution, and they have a number of things they're requesting from our political establishment. One of them is something that's that can be dealt with right now and on the federal level. And I hope you'll read it. And the link is in chat, and hopefully we can vote on this next month.
Thank you, John.
Sorry, Emma, if I can just follow up.
Sure.
I'll post the link again in chat. John sent this a little bit too late for this meeting, so I asked him to use good of the order to introduce it. So I'll put the link in chat again, so everyone can start reading it, and we will bring it forward at the April meeting.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Emily.
All right, next I see Vivian.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Vivian Song Morris. I am a member of the
43rd, and I'm also your school board director for Seattle Public Schools. Unfortunately, I had a recurring school board meetings. I haven't been able to attend as many of these as I'd like to, but I do think it's important to give updates to the community about what's happening in Seattle Public Schools. And if you've been reading the headlines, the school district is facing a very significant budget deficit. It's in the roughly $130 million a year. That's about 8 to 10% of our general operating budget. And I think it's important, as these are public monies, that we all stay informed. Yesterday, the school district had a webinar to talk about the financial position of the district. I will include a link to that recording. You have to scroll down to the middle of the page. It's a March 20th meeting, so you can watch that. I, in my position, cannot encourage you to directly advocate to our state legislature on public school funding, but I do encourage you to learn more about it. There's some very important measures that our state legislature is considering right now related to special education funding and bus transportation funding. And finally, I have regular office hours. They're virtual. I'm hoping to add some in-person ones as well. But they're virtual meetings. They're usually the last Tuesday of the month, and they're open to the public. And it's just an opportunity for you to come and ask me directly any questions that you may have related to Seattle Public Schools. Usually they are attended by parents, but I've had some grandparents, people who are just members of the community, do not have a direct relationship with Seattle Public Schools. And I think it's always a fantastic conversation about all the wonderful things that I see on a day-to-day basis in Seattle Public Schools, and also about people's concerns. So I will include a link to register for those office hours. But nice to see everybody here. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Really appreciate it. Okay, and Rye, did I pronounce that correctly? And I sincerely apologize if I did not.
No, that's right. Rye Armstrong, hello. I just wanted to shout out House Bill 1575. If you guys haven't heard about this, it passed the House and is now in the Senate in the Land Use Committee. We really want to support this bill. I don't know if you know, but housing taxes went through and got councilmanic authority, which means it doesn't have to be an initiative to the people. It would just be represented by a city council for them to vote on it, including taxes for housing. And we're trying to do that for the arts right now. So speaking about education funding, Inspire Washington, I went to the town hall with Representative Jayapal, and we're really trying to push this forward. So if you want to write to your representatives, we need the help and the support. So you can look up HB 1575, and it would create a progressive tax for the arts and create councilmanic authority for it to be imposed. So I just want to shout it out. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much. Okay, anyone else for the good of the order? We have a minute left. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for bringing forward everything that was on your mind this evening, and thank you to our committee chairs. Again, just one more plug for the volunteer form. Please check it out and get involved. The last thing on the agenda is adjourning. Is there a motion to adjourn? Paul?
I'll motion we adjourn.
Is there, and it's seconded in the chat. All right. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you, and we'll see you in a month.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.